Surprise.
Prepare to unleash your darkest fears with Prime Video's top 20 scariest horror movies. From heart-pounding scares to twisted tales of terror, these disturbing selections will haunt your dreams. Number 20, The Manor.
That's a sign of dementia.
Whatever I've seen at night, it's real.
Judith Albright, a once-renowned ballet dancer, enters a serene but unsettling nursing home after a sudden stroke leaves her vulnerable and alone. Determined to retain her independence, she quickly senses that something isn't right. Residents are dying mysteriously, and a dark, creeping presence stalks her room at night. As her warnings are dismissed as dementia, Judith finds herself trapped in a waking nightmare where trust erodes, and every glance from the staff hides something unspeakable. Shadows twist across the walls, and an ancient, withering evil seems to feed on fear and frailty, growing stronger with each passing day. The Manor is a haunting descent into elder dread, where the final chapter of life is haunted not by memory, but by something waiting to take everything. Number 19, Siren. A raucous bachelor party descends into an otherworldly nightmare when Jonah and his groomsmen stumble into a secret underground club that promises forbidden thrills but delivers something far worse. Drawn to a mysterious dancer trapped behind a glass wall, Jonah unwittingly unleashes a demonic entity, a succubus known as Lilith, whose hypnotic song and predatory hunger shatter the veneer of celebration and sanity alike. As the night spirals into blood-soaked chaos, friendships fracture and the line between predator and prey blurs in a hellish dance of survival. Directed by Greg Bishop, Siren transforms a hedonistic rite of passage into a visceral descent into myth-wrought terror, where ancient evil masquerades behind seductive guise as the ultimate party crasher. Number 18, Ivanna.
Kak, kayaknya patungnya gerak, Kak.
Ambar and her younger brother Dika, bereft after their parents' deaths, begin a fragile new life under the care of a family friend, only to discover that their new sanctuary harbors a centuries-old horror. Ambar, newly endowed with the ability to perceive the invisible, becomes haunted by visions of Ivanna, a Dutch woman decapitated in an act of violent colonial vengeance. When their elderly grandmother is found brutally beheaded, the siblings realize they are ensnared in a supernatural cycle of revenge that transcends time. Directed by Kimo Stambul, Ivanna is a gruesome, atmospheric horror that dredges up the sins of the past, where the most terrifying spirits are those that history refuses to lay to rest. Number 17, Dark Harvast.
You saw it? Did you kill it?
In a forgotten Midwestern town gripped by a gruesome Halloween tradition, teenage boys are locked away and starved for days before the annual run. A nightmarish race to slay the pumpkin-headed monstrosity Sawtooth Jack before he reaches the church by midnight. Richie Shepherd, desperate to escape the family curse cast long before him, defies odds and town rules as he pursues the creature that consumed his brother's fate. As he races through field and flickering torchlight, alliances form and betrayals ink themselves into his soul, all set against the steel-cold expectations of the Harvesters Guild. Directed by David Slade, Dark Harvest morphs small-town Americana into a savage ritual of survival, where escaping the past and outrunning fate bleed into one blood-soaked hunt. Number 16, Nocturne.
Really want that spotlight, you wouldn't let anything get in your way. Not even your sister.
Juliette Lowe, a gifted but overshadowed pianist, haunts the quiet halls of an elite arts academy, until a classmate's tragic suicide thrusts a mysterious notebook into her hands, and with it, a dark symphony she can't resist. Driven by envy of her prodigious twin sister, she begins to play a cursed composition that promises brilliance, but exacts a toll on her mind. As she chases the spotlight, reality splinters into nightmarish visions drawn from occult symbols and dreamscape collisions, and the boundary between ambition and damnation blurs. Nocturne is a brooding psychological horror disguised as a musical rivalry, where the greatest masterpiece may be the one that destroys the soul. Number 15, A House on the Bayou.
Oh, girl, you got a gusher.
he?
A strained family, Jessica, John, and their teenage daughter, Anna, retreats to an isolated Louisiana plantation house in hopes of healing fractures left by John's infidelity. Their uneasy escape turns sinister when Isaac and his unsettling elder, Grandpappy, arrive uninvited, insinuating themselves into the family's fragile peace with cryptic warnings and disturbing psychological games. As the Bayou's oppressive hush creeps in, the locked room in the house becomes a symbolic trap, revealing layers of betrayal, manipulation, and demonic judgment. The film merges Southern Gothic dread with supernatural undercurrents, weaving tension through its murky swamps where moral decay and unseen forces distort every family bond. Number 14, The Poughkeepsie Tapes. A seemingly abandoned house in Poughkeepsie yields hundreds of dusty videotapes, each one a warped page in a killer's private diary of abduction, torture, and dismemberment. As crime scene investigators and FBI profilers piece together the footage, the house becomes a mausoleum of human horror and the tapes a confession as cold as the grave. The killer remains faceless, hidden behind masks and static, yet his presence pulses through every frame, turning voyeurism into obsession. With each grainy reel, the film drags you deeper into the mind of a psychopath, until the real terror isn't what you see, but what you imagine in the flickering corners. Number 13, Run, Sweetheart, Run.
What are you?
On what feels like an innocent work-mandated dinner, single mother Cherie finds herself drawn into the allure of a charming stranger whose true nature shatters the light of their first meeting. What begins as flirtation becomes a pulse-pounding nightmare when Ethan's deadly obsession emerges, and Cherie must flee through the streets of Los Angeles in a desperate battle of survival. Haunted by a predator who can slip through every barrier, she fights not just for her life but for recognition in a world quick to dismiss her terror. Directed by Shauna Fest, this supernatural horror thriller transmutes a seemingly ordinary date into a relentless descent into malevolent pursuit, where escape becomes both physical and existential. Number 12, Lake Mungo.
Footage of a figure moving across the hallway.
When 16-year-old Alice Palmer drowns in an Australian dam, her family is left fractured, drifting through grief like ghosts themselves. But soon the mourning deepens into dread. Bruises bloom on her brother's arms. Strange images flicker in home videos, and grainy footage suggests she still lingers among them. As they invite seances and exhumations in search of solace, the boundaries between memory and presence blur, revealing secrets Alice carried to her grave. Presented as a mock-doc horror tapestry, the film peels back grief one layer at a time, making loss feel as tangible and as supernatural as a heartbeat in the dark. Lake Mungo is a slow-burning, emotionally shattering descent into what we leave behind and what refuses to let go. Number 11, Isolation.
You're tired, younger. Fucking young to be pregnant. Something's gone wrong.
On a remote Irish dairy farm, Dan reluctantly hosts a clandestine genetics experiment meant to boost cattle fertility, only to discover that nature has twisted the lab's intentions into grotesque living nightmares. When a veterinarian examines the calf and uncovers fanged deformities and parasitic growths, the farm's eerie silence fractures into a symphony of blood, bio-horror, and elemental dread. As the creatures burst through flesh and bodies, alliances crumble under the weight of infection and betrayal, revealing a primal struggle that is as mucky and visceral as it is cruelly ingenious. Isolation drags you deep into an agriculture-tainted abyss. The banal becomes monstrous, and survival is soaked in slurry and suspicion. Here are 4 other movies you have to see. Get Duped.
Your generation, you're always complaining, always saying you are the victim.
Fuck off, Granddad!
4 rowdy teens are dropped into the Scottish Highlands for a wilderness challenge, but the trip quickly turns deadly when they're hunted by masked aristocrats. Equal parts absurd and brutal, the boys must outwit their pursuers using their clueless chaos. A wild horror comedy with biting satire. Satan. After a wild Christmas Eve at a nightclub, a group of friends accept an invitation to a strange country house. There they meet a disturbing caretaker whose obsession with fertility and satanic rituals turns their holiday into a hallucinatory nightmare. In My Mother's Skin. In World War II-era Philippines, a young girl desperate to save her dying mother makes a deal with a malevolent forest spirit posing as a fairy. The promise of help becomes a curse as the spirit demands an escalating price. A haunting folk horror steeped in colonial and familial dread. The Nightmare.
그건 꿈이야. 진짜로 모르겠어?
This surreal documentary explores the terrifying phenomenon of sleep paralysis through reenactments of real experiences. Victims describe being trapped in their bodies, unable to move while shadowy figures loom over them in the dark. Number 10, Killers.
Why do this?
Because
It makes you feel
Nomura, a polished Tokyo office worker, conceals a depraved appetite, posting videos of his killings online for twisted applause. Across oceans in Jakarta, investigative journalist Bayou stumbles upon one of these grim tapes, and instead of recoiling, he finds himself ignited by the thrill of anonymity and the idea of justice through blood. As Bayou sinks deeper into this shared obsession, the two lurkers forge a dangerous digital bond, a countdown to confrontation where virtual applause morphs into mortal rivalry. With each uploaded murder, the contest grows more brutal, and both killers spiral toward a face-to-face showdown drenched in vengeance and notoriety. Number 9, The Deeper You Dig.
She reached out to me from the darkness. She revealed to me a sign.
Tell my mother what you've done.
A reclusive settler named Kurt moves into an abandoned farmhouse, hoping to breathe new life into the land. But fate twists his intentions when a roadside accident ends with the death of Echo, a teenager whom he tries to conceal beneath the earth. As guilt and supernatural forces intertwine, Echo's presence burrows into Kurt's mind, warping his reality as her mother, through cryptic tarot readings, pieces together the tragedy. This eerie family production draws you into a haunting tapestry where grief ruptures the boundary between the living and the dead. Scenes linger with muted dread and painterly visuals, shaping a primal tale of loss and revenge. Number 8, Oculus. Kaylee Russell, haunted by the bloody deaths of her parents, returns home after years of investigating the uncanny mirror she believes destroyed her family. Alongside her reluctant brother Tim, still confined by trauma, she sets up surveillance in the old family house, seeking to document the mirror's true power before destroying it. But the glass doesn't just reflect, it twists memory, warping the past and present into a hall of echoes. Hallucinations bleed into reality. Trust fractures at every blink, and the mirror's malevolent will pulses just beneath the surface. Written and directed by Mike Flanagan, Oculus is a psychological mirror maze of dread, where the greatest terror is not what you see, but what you believe you know. Number 7, We Are Still Here.
Goddamn place just wakes up! And it demands new blood!
Grieving parents Paul and Ann Sacchetti seek solace in a remote New England home after the fatal car crash that claimed their teenage son. What begins as a fragile attempt at healing morphs into a cryptic nightmare as strange whispers echo within the old house and restless spirits stir beneath its floorboards. Neighborhood warnings fall on deaf ears, and a seance called by their spiritual friends unleashes a spectral hunger anchored to sacrifice and ancient family betrayal. As the chilling calm fractures into relentless bloodshed, alliances shift and dread blooms into visceral vengeance. The film blends Southern Gothic mournfulness with 70s grindhouse gore, turning grief's frailty into a crucible of supernatural terror. Number 6, The Endless.
It's gonna control you over and over again.
We're all stuck in these things!
We couldn't be happier.
Justin and Aaron, brothers bound by a shared escape from a cult, have tried to rebuild their lives, but when a strange videotape arrives, it pulls them back to Camp Arcadia, the commune they fled a decade earlier. Greeted by familiar faces who haven't aged a day, they find the camp eerily untouched, suspended in a peaceful loop that feels too perfect to be real. As they search for answers, strange symbols appear in the sky. Time fractures around them, and their reality begins to collapse in on itself. The closer they get to the truth, the more they question whether they ever escaped at all, or if they're still trapped in something far older and far more terrifying than they imagined. The Endless is a cosmic horror spiral that pulls you in slowly, then never lets you go. Number 5, The Void.
Who are they?
There is something calling them all here.
One cold night, Patrol Officer Daniel Carter discovers a blood-soaked man crawling along a lonely road and rushes him to a nearly abandoned rural hospital. Inside, that fleeting act of protection becomes a waking nightmare as patients and staff begin to warp into grotesque eldritch horrors and hooded cultists gather outside, sealing everyone within walls that pulse with cosmic dread. As walls dissolve and flesh mutates, the survivors find themselves descending deeper. Into basements, into belief, into the heart of a portal to something far older and far crueler. The Void is Lovecraftian horror fused with 80s-style practical gore, an infernal corridor where every flicker of fluorescent light reveals another layer of nightmare. Number 4, The Forbidden Door. Gambier, a celebrated sculptor basking in critical acclaim, lives a life draped in privilege and creative triumph, until mysterious pleas for help begin arriving through cryptic messages at his doorstep. As he peels away the polished surface of his existence, he stumbles upon a hidden door in his own home, one his wife urgently forbids him to open. His curiosity becomes obsession, drawing him into a clandestine world where twisted art, forbidden broadcasts, and a silent, suffering child threaten to shatter every layer of his carefully constructed life. Joko Anwar forges a psychological labyrinth of dread, where every revelation fractures reality, and every secret demands a sacrifice. Number 3, Suspiria.
Tears. And sighs.
Aiming to advance her art and escape familiar confines, Susie Banyan travels from Ohio to a prestigious Berlin dance academy during the charged season of political unrest known as the German Autumn. Under the poised tutelage of Madame Blanc, Susie becomes ensnared in the academy's hidden undercurrents, a coven of witches who cast spells through movement and discipline. As choreography weds flesh to ritual, the Academy's elegant corridors pulse with ideological guilt, suppressed power, and gendered legacy. Directed by Luca Guadagnino, this homage rather than a remake submerges dance in dread, trading Argento's stylized palette for a bleak, ritual-wrought expression of supernatural control and maternal authority. Number 2, 10 Cloverfield Lane.
No! Don't open that door! They're going to get all the kills!
Michelle, reeling from a sudden car crash, regains consciousness to find herself trapped in an underground bunker with 2 strangers. Howard, a gruff survivalist claiming the outside world has become toxic, and Emmett, a jittery young man who insists there's truth to Howard's warnings. As days pass within the claustrophobic concrete walls, the weight of skepticism and fear warps every glance and word. Is Howard a savior or a captor? When shadows fall over hidden truths, and the bunker's veneer of safety fractures, Michelle must navigate paranoia and deceptive calm in a fight to define reality before it suffocates her. The film, a taut psychological horror thriller that forces you to question whether the greatest threat is from above or from the man you're trapped with. Number 1, Brimstone.
Why do you let him do this?
In the brutal expanse of the Old West, mute midwife Liz is haunted by the arrival of a fiery preacher whose presence sows terror and twisted power. Wrongly accused, she flees across barren landscapes, piecing together her fragmented past through a sequence of grisly, intertwined chapters that play out in reverse, each unveiling a new layer of desecration, survival, and vengeance. As ancient faith warps into fanatic violence, Liz's resilience becomes her only defense, her silence a weapon in a merciless world where language deceives and identity shatters. Brimstone is a searing, slow-burn revenge horror thriller that twists morality beneath oppressive skies. Where salvation isn't granted, it's stolen through scars. Here are 4 other movies you have to see. Pizza. A pizza delivery boy enters a house that turns his routine drop-off into a surreal, nightmarish trap filled with ghosts and shifting realities. As he fights to escape, deeper secrets about his own past unravel. A clever horror thriller that blends scares with a smart twist. The Horde. A group of cops raid a rundown Parisian apartment block to take down a drug gang, but their mission collapses when the dead suddenly rise. Trapped inside with no escape, cops and criminals must fight together to survive the growing horde of undead. The Invisible Man.
Surprise.
After After escaping an abusive relationship, Cecilia begins to suspect she's being stalked by her ex, who's supposedly dead. As her life unravels under invisible assaults, she must prove she's not insane while being hunted by a presence no one else can see. A modern psychological twist on the classic horror tale. Jack goes home. After his father's death in a car crash, Jack returns to his childhood home to care for his mother, but instead uncovers a series of disturbing messages that point to long-buried family secrets. As he spirals into grief and obsession, Jack begins to question everything about his past and his own sanity.